Nope. Oh, we're live. You can't say it. Don't say anything.
Oh, sorry. That'll get us canceled. All right, never mind.
I don't want to know. We are
No,
we
you
are
don't.
live and we're here to
Oh yeah,
to
we
go
are live.
live and
Whoops.
thrive. Yeah. We're it's just a train wreck. Welcome everybody. There's nothing new. It's always a train wreck with Cardigan Kid. Here at Chasing Billy, joined by Josh Slatten, who just got back from a lovely little adventure
Yes, sir.
overseas, over in the, I don't know, on the sea, not exactly overseas, but,
Can we count the Gulf of
and
Mexico as overseas? Maybe, maybe.
just, I don't know, man. I'm trying. It's Sunday. I'm tired. Um, and we're joined by Keegan Cool from Culz Paranormal, which is a treat. I've been on your all show and hung out with you guys, and you guys cover just about everything that I think is cool. So that's awesome. It keeps me interested and engaged. Keegan, why don't you tell us a bit about your channel and what you do and what your interests are?
Ooh, I mean, how to describe the channel? I don't know. There's something for everybody on there.
Yep.
We started out as just a paranormal group, but during the pandemic, obviously, it was hard to get out and about. So we started doing interviews, and we love history and we travel a lot. So we were like, well, let's, splice that in somehow. And now we cover everything. Our two biggest topics, one's Billy the Kid, and then the other one's dinosaurs. So I don't even know where paranormal falls anymore, but we do cover it. It's still there somewhere.
That's wild. How can we mesh the two, Billy the Kid and dinosaurs?
Oh,
So,
I have an
I,
idea.
I've got to ask, how do you? Dinosaurs are cool and all, but how does that consist of like a main topic? Like, what's the general theme of the discussions on dinosaurs?
So usually we're doing like new scientific papers that come out. I'll read them. Sometimes they're 10 pages, sometimes they're 60. And then I try to get them down so like everyone can understand what's going on. There's not a bunch of just scientific terms going throughout. But yeah, I've always loved dinosaurs. My great grandfather helped with the Stegosaurus that's in the Denver Museum. So it's in my
Oh,
blood.
no, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of dinosaur stuff in New Mexico?
There's footprints up near Capulan. There's a volcano
Yeah.
there too that's super cool. Colorado, above it where we're from, there's a ton. Like you can throw a rock and hit something dinosaur. Kind of like when you go down to New Mexico, you throw a rock, something Billy related. I mean, we
Yeah.
spent so much time. I think every August we'd go down to Raton,
Hmm.
and there's Billy the Kid stuff all over the place, even there. So
So how far away from Denver are you?
on a good day, which is probably more like at midnight, you can make it there at 30 minutes. During the day with traffic, it's probably 45 to an hour.
So it's kind of a selfish question, but there's Denver is the hotbed of a bunch of research that needs to be done about Joe Antrim, Billy the Kid's brother. So if we ever need boots on the ground, I may enlist you in the cause.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy. We've been researching some of the locations where he stayed, the houses
Really?
and stuff. Yeah. A lot of them aren't there anymore, but it gives you at least a rough estimate of okay, it happened here. There's a giant
Right.
tower on it now, but this is where the house was.
So he stayed for a long time on Larimer, right?
Mm.
The street was called Larimer. Is that how you pronounce it? Or
Yeah, Larimer, it's kind of close to 14th and Larimer, I believe.
he was it was a hotel at the time, if I remember correctly. It's
Yeah, like
crazy
a
how
boarding house.
I spent a ton of time studying Joe, and I've spent a ton of time studying a lot of facets of Billy the Kid world, and it's amazing how much you forget as you look into other stuff. And maybe that's just me, but like I can't keep all the facts in my head, even though I've read and read and read on it. I know Doss, conversely, is an encyclopedia of specific dates and times that I'll never understand how he does that. But for me, I know that I've read like 18 volumes on a certain subject, and somebody asked me off the cuff, and I'm like, I don't know, man. You have to look it up. Can you still hear me? I nudged my mic 5 centimeters, and it might go out on me.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna have to
sounds good.
order
Yeah.
a mechanic. But so what I think about Joe Antrim is while he was living at Larimer, and I think he was a runner for poker games, which, among other things, kind of means like he would keep a lookout for the law when gambling was illegal. So he would like run from downstairs, to where the poker game was happening, and then back up to the streets and stuff. But also, at least at one time, it said he worked at a bank and he was some kind of clerk or bookkeeper. And I have read in other sources that a lot of times these poker dealers and these guys who ran the games would use they would have someone get a job at a bank so they would know who the high rollers are and keep track of funds and be able to kind of give tips as to who to lure into games and stuff. And I thought that was kind of a neat connection for Joe. And there was probably a gambling motivation behind his working at a bank or as a bookkeeper. And there's one instance where it says that Joe was working in a cigar shop, and there's something about that business or that industry that was conducive to like the shady underground world too, but I've forgotten. But there's a lot of Joe research to be done in that area, and he spent most of his life there.
Yeah, either in Denver or Trinidad are the two like big hotspots for him. And yeah, we've been looking. I really like his story. It's even more mysterious than Billy's, which
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just not well researched, but we've been on the lookout to what happened to his body because it got donated after death to the school.
Hmm.
And we're hoping at some point maybe we'll run across what happened as far as documents. But we've made some friends with some people that help collect what's it called? Oh, I hear some echo.
You hear echo?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Let me
But
see. Let me try one thing. So it sounds like you have done a lot more boots on the ground research already than I would typically have expected.
Yeah, we've tried. We go down to Denver a little bit, but we just being that we talk so much Billy, I really wanted to figure out what is going on with Joseph because obviously there's so many channels covering Billy, we kind of get lost in the wayside. So I wanted to try to do something different, and if I can help
Mhm.
bring some light to it. And yeah, we have reached out to some people that collect artifacts from old medical schools, and I was really excited because I thought we were super close, but he had a skull from a medical school at the same time that Joseph would have died, but it ended up being the wrong medical school, so I was bummed out.
Dude, I'm
Yeah.
that's impressive that you've done a lot of work already on that. That's awesome. I do kind of hold out hope that he was buried and not
Mhm.
cremated. So there's something there. Has the echo improved anymore for you?
Yeah, it sounds good to me.
Okay. There was an
Ke-
option to reduce some background noise, so hopefully that
hey Keegan,
helps.
were you aware? I know I'm not sure exactly where the facility is, but in Denver, there's a portion of the National Archives that are held in Denver. And I know I was trying to make a trip up there when I was looking for Ollinger's body because all the records for the Merchant Marine Cemetery, the original records are listed there in Denver. So I wasn't sure if you're aware of that or not. I'm not sure the exact facility, but I know it is part of the National Archive. So if we ever get back on that again, yeah, we'll throw that in there and put that on your to do list because I don't know how it ended up in Denver, but that is kind of ironic.
Right. So, yeah, it seems like every story ends up in Denver at some point. I mean, heck,
I
Tombstone ends
agree
up
with
close by.
Yeah, there's so much Colorado stuff that goes on. And I agree with you about Joe being in some ways just as mysterious or more mysterious than Billy, just as elusive in the historical record almost, and just as not talkative about his past. But I'm sure he lived a very colorful and action-packed life as well. I don't know if you've seen that article. He was actually involved in a armed robbery. He was with a couple friends, and they were robbed by someone else and locked in a closet. And it's just all kinds of stuff that I'm sure we could still dig up about Joe. What did you think? Did you see the stuff we did on Claude Antrim and the possible, son that he may have had?
I have not yet, no.
Okay, that Matt Carr asked. is there any more on how he may have followed his stepson about? Um, and it's maybe it might take a little longer to explain, but the idea is that when he married Jenny Stone, she definitely had a son named Claude, and he took possession of him and said that she was an unfit mother. She took him to court for kidnapping, and he sent Claude to a private school. And the hypothesis is maybe this was actually Joe's son. Uh, and if that's the case, we found a Claude Antrim who showed up a lot of places near Joe at the same time. And we did some research and tracked down his ancestor or his descendants, but we couldn't get anybody to talk to us. And to answer Matt's question, no, we haven't. We really can't follow up on much now because nobody will talk to us that is living and a descendant of Claude. But we did a lot of research on it, and it's very possible that Joe had a son. At the most, this would be a stepson, but it's very possible it could be a biological son.
Well, and the one time we had a chance for someone to ask, he did not ask anything. So bad reporting
Yeah.
there.
That was 1929, right? He did an article for the Denver newspaper, and he interviewed this Joe Antrim, who was just an old gambler. They were like, "Let's do a little interesting piece on this gambler, this old guy in Denver." And he went and clearly didn't have any interest in the story at all. Didn't pump Joe for questions, and Joe hardly told him anything. And then when the reporter got back, somebody called the office and was like, "You know who that was? It was Billy the Kid's brother." And he was like, "So I don't. Who gives a damn?" And that's one of the tragic mistakes and missed opportunities of history.
Well, that and knowing what him and Garrett talked about when they came face to face that time. I've always wanted
What
to know,
happened
like,
in that?
what was that conversation?
And it's ironic that Pat never talked about it as hungry as he was for attention, as many interviews as he gave, from 1900 on. Yeah, I don't know why he never mentioned it. It would be interesting to see if we ever come across an article where it addresses that, because there's just so many out there, James, that that are just floating around. Because, well, yeah, why would Garrett not mention that? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe he was scared.
Maybe
Scared of,
scared
scared
of Joe.
of Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I know it sounded like they at least left cordial, so I don't think there was any threats made. But I don't know if Garrett wanted to hang around too much longer.
Maybe that's because Pat told Joe, "Hey, look, your brother's not really dead. I let him go."
I think he was killed that night, but that's me.
I was just giving the listeners, the conspiratorials, a little chance at hope.
A little nugget, yeah. Yeah, no, actually, I watched a lot of the Brushy stuff recently, so.
Well, I saw that you did a podcast recently, an episode on the Don Klein book.
Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts on Don's book?
It was interesting. I had recently, well, not recently, but I had read Gail Cooper's book, and I think she took a lot from that. It's sourced a lot. Yeah. And so it was at least neat to see where it had come from. There's still a lot of things that probably aren't factually accurate by today's means, but it was fun to see like the story of Brushy Bill going around in Arkansas claiming to be Frank James. I don't know why. That just there was a story where he's in the town square in like Heiko, which I've been to, so I can like picture it perfectly in my head. And apparently there's these people walking. He'd like trap them in the corner and wave his hands about and say he was Billy the Kid. And I don't know why, but that is just the funniest thing. Like I want to make a short of that somehow because I just enjoy that picture.
And there's a couple other interviews that with people from Heiko that reference how as children they would have to avoid him because he'd trap them in the corner and would let them go and would talk their arm off. So, yeah, that's not the first place that appears. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it definitely goes against the story that he was just being a hermit and quiet and not talking to anybody, which I saw recently on TV being purported.
Yes.
Yeah, he was so withdrawn that he went to every newspaper and told him he was in town. That's how quiet and shy he was.
Right. Well, see, something else too is like what was in the water, right? Because you have J. Frank Dalton, you have Uncle Kit Carson, you have a couple different John Wilkes Booths hanging around. Like, what happened in that small little part of Texas that drew all those people out?
Yeah. I mean, and these are delusions. Like a lot of time, what may have started as a simple deception, you start to wonder, did these guys really believe it at the end? Like, did they really start to buy their own BS? But the thing about Don Klein's book that kind of disappoints me is that the really interesting stuff I wish he had more sources for, because
Mhm.
I can't find anything on the Frank James stuff where Brushy was in Arkansas. He said that Brushy claimed to be Frank James, and they actually had to call Brushy's brother Tom to come pick him up. And I Don doesn't really cite a source that I can look for that, and I wish that he would. Not that I don't believe it, because I do believe it. It's just I never can use it as a solid argument in my Brushy research because it's not really well cited, and he does that a lot in that book. And I think it's just lazy research on his part, where he kind of it just took on a huge task and it kind of got away from him because there's a few things he doesn't cite very well in that. And it's not really a good book, honestly. And I don't know if that's because it was a first draft, maybe that he never got to finish, or what. Josh, do you know if he just never got to finish it, or is it just a trash book?
No, it's my understanding that he's done with it, was done with it. I just think it was just lazy writing. And you're right. He sources and cites a lot of things, but then he leaves out a lot of really obvious stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and kind of like y'all were saying, there's a lot of really interesting tidbits in it, but the problem is it's hard to use it in an argument with anybody because he gets so many other obvious things wrong, just history stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I think he referenced Amarillo being in existence in 1880, and I'm like, he's only 30 years off. So, and that's just one of many. So, the things that he referenced towards Brushy, I feel are spot on, but unfortunately, it's sprinkled with so much other bad history that it's really hard to use it as a stepping or a pillar to argue with somebody off of. That's my issue with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
Well, one
good
thing I kind of got from it too, it almost seemed like he thought maybe Morrison had been duped himself. There's multiple times where it seems like he's writing it as if Morrison was duped and not helping in it. I don't know.
Do you think Morrison helped in it?
Me? Yeah, I think so. I think he had to
What do
help a
you think,
little
Josh?
bit. Yeah.
yeah, I think so. And I think originally this was hush hush, but so much of this has come out over time now that James, Keegan, you may not know this, but we've been told that there's letters out there from Morrison to his family where he admits that it's all bullshit and not. There's a pretty well known author and gentleman out there right now that's in possession of those, and we just can't. We can't seem to get a hold of them, unfortunately. So it's really hard to use that again as an argument. But yeah, I think Morrison was in on it. And James and I have talked about this on the show. If Morrison wasn't in on it, then he's the most oblivious human being on the planet. I don't. Morrison was a lot of stuff, but I don't think he was stupid. There's just no way he didn't see it. So yeah, I'm almost positive that he knew about it. Maybe not at first, but if I'm not mistaken, and I read so much stuff that it all bleeds over. But was it Klein's book that references Brushy even going up to Missouri and maybe seeking Morrison out, or am I pulling that from another source, or am I just crazy?
Yes. The Klein's book cites an interview that Klein did with a guy that worked at
That's
the
right.
auto parts store with Morrison, and he said that Morrison brought Brushy over once, and he said that Morrison said that he met Brushy when Brushy came to his office in St. Louis and said, "I want a pardon." And Don Klein even says in the transcript of the interview, "Are you sure he didn't meet him through, Florida and the typical narrative?" And the guy
Right.
was like, "No, he definitely said Brushy came to him in St. Louis." So that's a very explicit, definite contradiction of the narrative given in a interview that Don actually did himself with someone that knew Brushy and Morrison.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And I thought it was. I just it all bleeds together after a while. But man, that just throws an entirely different perspective on it. From the Like you said, man, he's just a crazy old man, or I'm sorry, he's just an old man looking to hermitize himself, and Morrison is seeking him out. And I think, regardless of how it came about, I think that's BS. I think that's kind of obvious at this point.
Yeah, I mean, is Joe Hines even real?
No, well,
I think so.
yes, so we're ruining a future video, but whatever. I contacted every county in Florida about 6 months ago, and yes, we do find a Joe Hines on the census, and I think that's one that James is referencing. James, if I'm saying that wrong, fix me.
Yeah.
The problem is that Joe Hines does not appear on any county court records or anything to substantiate Morrison's claim that he went down there to fix all this crap and all that. We've also done the same thing in South Dakota. I think Jason did that for us, and that doesn't match there either. So, yeah, there's a Joe Hines, but he may be the Joe Hines that's intertwined and all this other crap. But I think, as far as being the Jesse Evans Joe Hines, I think that's crap.
I think it is. Well, yeah, I don't think he was Jesse Evans at all, and I don't think there's actually a discrepancy there. William Morrison never said that Joe Hines was Jesse Evans. That's something that Dan
Very true.
Edwards got wrong, and a lot of people assume it was Jesse Evans. He actually
Right.
said Hines was William Campbell, and that's actually in a letter that Morrison wrote that's from the University of Texas at El Paso that I have a copy of. And so we definitely know that Morrison thought he was Campbell. Everybody nowadays thinks he's Hines because that's what certain Brushy authors have purported, and it's just incorrect. But the
Yeah.
thing is that I think there was a Joseph Leslie Hines in Pensacola, Florida. He was an old timer like Dalton and Brushy and all them, and they were friends. This Joe Hines claimed to be, I don't know, Keegan, if you know a lot about the Dalton story and the Jesse James story, that's where it gets convoluted and just makes your head explode with their conspiracies. But that's where Joe Hines factors in a lot more. Joe Hines was really, quote in quotes, really, according to Dalton and that crowd, the Lee Houck crowd, his name was really Jesse R. James, Jesse Robert James. And he was not the Jesse Woodson James. They were cousins. And there was a Jesse and Frank and a Jesse and Frank, and they were from two families. One was called Dingus, and one was Jesse Woodson James. And Dingus was the Jesse James who lived in Florida under the name Joe Hines, who was also William Campbell from the Lincoln County War and who also knew Billy the Kid. And it's this guy who apparently William Morrison talked to and learned of Brushy. This guy was also visited by J. Frank Dalton and Lee Houck, and also possibly Brushy and maybe Morrison in like 48 or 49. Lee Houck talks about visiting him in his book, like the Black Book. I think it's just called the Black Book or something. It's a big
Yeah, the
Jesse
Black
James
Book of
book.
Jesse James, something like that.
Yeah. Lee Houck talks about visiting Joe Hines or Jesse R. James in Pensacola, Florida, and it's the same old timer. This whole thing is just an old timer scam network that everybody pretends to be five different people, and it's a shame that it's become this. But honestly, man, I'm pretty much brushed out. I've spent so much time researching and finding all these reasons to not believe it, and until I just had to come to the conclusion that it, if you look at the evidence and if you have a rational mind and you still believe it, there's nothing that will convince you otherwise. And honestly, rational argument is beyond uh, consideration for me because the evidence is there that it's a fraud. And if you can't see it, you're just choosing not to see it. And any dialogue is kind of worthless at this point, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wrote my last Brushy video as kind of like my goodbye to the subject because I was just like, I don't know what else I can say at this point. Like I've said it so much
Yeah.
in the 14 videos I have. I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's it. you know?
Yeah, I think, and Josh with Wild West Extravaganza, he's kind of the same way. I email him back and forth, and he just released another one that's, again, it's 2 hours of just beating people over the head with the same knowledge that we all know for a fact, and they just ignore. So, you know, James is telling me all the time that I just got to walk away and leave it alone, and it's just so fascinating but frustrating at the same time. So, you know, whether we do or not, we'll see. We just we always seem to circle back to it for some reason. I don't know why, but
Because it is fascinating. It's super fascinating. I love the story in itself, all these old time scammers. It's the same reason. I'll tell you another thing, non-Billy related. I'm super fascinated by Joseph Smith and Mormonism for the same
mm,
reason. Like it's these folks who are able to cast such a spell on people
yeah,
and create a
interesting.
movement. And it's that same vibe. I'm very interested in Brushy Bill and Dalton and all them, but I've had to walk away from actually trying to have dialogue with folks or trying to convince people it's fraud because if you just look at it, you see it, and if you don't, that's your own choice, and it's just not worth my time.
It would be an interesting read unless you've done it and I've already missed it, but you need to go back to that Jesse James Black book and read the narrative of how they faked Jesse's death or how they were set up to kill Jesse. Because it reminds me of a 1940s Lone Ranger Tonto episode. It's the most
Have you read that,
past.
Keegan?
It's so bad.
So I've read quite a bit of Jesse James. I don't read as much of him as Billy because I'm actually related to the Jesse James stuff. So we have a lot of
Yeah.
old stories and pictures. So I hear all that, and there's a lot of like he definitely died that day, and so I haven't really tried to go. I've read some of the conspiracy books, but yeah, I've not never gotten too much into that one. I've journeyed to the locations and stuff. They're really neat.
Yeah, it's insane. I'll do a video sometime just narrating that one section of how
It's
Jesse James' death was faked. But
yeah.
getting back to like getting back to Billy the Kid, because I'm sure a lot of people, me and Josh on this show, Keegan, are frequently chastised by our faithful viewers when we go off topic, and and when we venture into Brushy land, we feel the scorn of the
Yeah.
viewers. Um, so what you said you're interested in dinosaurs, the show's paranormal. Uh, why is Billy the Kid thrown in there? What is it about Billy the Kid that makes him a point of interest for you among all these other varied things?
So this is such a hard one for me because I always ask people on my show what got you, and then usually it's like Young Guns or
Yeah.
something like that.
Mm.
For me, I think it was just gradual. I like history. My family history, like I said, is insane. And we always go to New Mexico, so he's always popping up here and there. But I'm also a huge James Dean fan, and one of the parts he was going to play was in The Left-Handed Gun as Billy the Kid. So that might have helped. And we just started going down to Fort Sumner and Lincoln and reading all the books, watching all the shows, and now it's just about, I guess, preserving history on the channel. There's a lot of people that when we show like the different graves and stuff as shorts, people will come and say thank you so much because I can't make it out there. So I'm really happy I could at least see it this way, and that's what's important to me.
That's one of the cool things that I think you guys do on there is all the graves that you show and all these graves that you visit. Clearly a very important thing to you and also very important to us. And it's awesome to see another channel out there that's, run by folks dedicated to preserving history in addition to all the other stuff you like to explore. I really like too all the film stuff that you go into. Um, I just ordered the Criterion edition of Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid coming out this Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that film?
I love the soundtrack. Bob Dylan did a great job. I will
That
say,
says a lot, doesn't it?
right.
It's a
I
great
will.
soundtrack.
Well, I'll
Yeah,
say,
I just want to say before he answers that, everybody starts out by saying, "Man, it's a good soundtrack." It's like, she sure was nice. That's go ahead. Sorry, because I already know where this is going now.
yeah. When we did it was, I don't know if we've done a proper review, but when we talked about it in our bracket that we did, I said Bob Dylan would have made a better Billy the Kid than Chris Christopherson. He just
Yeah,
looks much
Absolutely.
more in line with what Billy would be. I'm still super excited. It's not the worst Billy the Kid film. There's quite a few. There's like a whole niche of Billy the Kid versus vampires. So if you had a choice, go watch Pat Garrett and the Billy Kid. And I'm excited for Criterion because their additions are amazing. Like the One-Eyed Jacks, very, very good on Criterion.
Great movie. Also, if anybody's interested in Billy the Kid movies, that's kind of a more obscure one. One-Eyed Jacks with Marlon Brando, and it's not, the characters aren't named. You wouldn't really know it was Billy the Kid, but it's based on his story. And so if you're familiar with the history at all, I started watching it having no idea it was a Billy the Kid movie.
Yeah.
Funny story about One-Eyed Jacks. I was scrolling through Amazon Prime and I was like, I need a break from Billy the Kid. I'm just worn out. I've spent all this time researching, and all I do is watch Billy the Kid movies. I just want to watch a good Western and turn my brain off for a minute. Picked One-Eyed Jacks, freaking based on Billy the Kid. It's like I can't escape Billy. But yes, very good movie in its own right if anybody wants to check out One-Eyed Jacks. Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid is, in my opinion, right now, that may change, but right now, it's in my opinion, is just a crappy movie. I don't like it. But it's still Billy the Kid, and I still ordered the Criterion Collection because you're right, they do good work, and it's a film, and I'm gonna watch it because it's Billy. But another reason I ordered it is because I feel like there's 26 different versions of this film that people talk about. There's 3 versions of the film on this DVD, and I've only seen one version, and I'm not even sure what version that was. So maybe if I see another version that's better, I'll change my opinion. But our friend Lucas Spear, apparently that's like his favorite Billy movie. So I wanted to be very clear on this show, if he's watching, that he likes a crappy movie and that he needs to get better film taste.
Oh, I was literally talking to Lucas on the phone when I came in here to meet you guys. So I'll if he's not watching, I'll pass it on to him.
Yes.
I mean,
But
what's
I
your
agree. I don't
favorite
like
one?
it either. What's that?
My favorite kid,
Yeah.
Josh. What's your favorite kid movie?
The Kid,
Yeah.
the most recent one. Young Guns that will always have that place, but The Kid for me is what really, and I don't know if anybody else has had this experience, but of course, I started watching Young Guns when I was 10, 11. So, and I've been infatuated ever since. But really, when The Kid came out, it's been 6, 7 years now. Man, that's really what threw it into overdrive for me. I mean, I went from, hey, I'm buying books and I'm reading stuff and doing it to, 6 months later, I was starting a nonprofit and, and searching for graves. So yeah, The Kid really did it for me, man. I just tell people ignore the side story, which is not even a bad side story. The
No.
brother and sister. I thought it was a good story all over, but if you focus on the Billy aspect of it, freaking great, man. I love it. Best portrayal of Billy, hands down. I've said that before, and I'll fight anybody that says otherwise.
Yeah, no,
Right.
Dane DeHaan won our bracket for Best Billy. So
Yeah, Josh, we'll pick a time and place.
Sorry.
We will fight over this issue. But it is.
Okay.
It's probably my favorite Billy too, if I had to pick one. Which is funny because, yeah, it is a good main story, and it's a good fictional little story about a kid and his sister, on the run. But the thing that grabs you, all of us Billy lovers, is the side story and the world it happens in. All the Billy stuff, man. You could just toss the rest of it out. Love Ethan Hawke as
Yeah.
Pat Garrett. Doesn't look a thing like him or anything, but love that character. And that is fantastic.
He played him very
kind of
well.
a technicality. I love Old Henry. It's technically a Billy the Kid movie, not really, a historical movie, but man, it is a work of art. That film is amazing. And someone
Which one was that
out.
again? You broke up.
Old Henry. It's a work of art.
Oh yeah.
Not technically a
Very
Billy
good.
the Kid movie as a portrayal of the kid that we can compare, but fantastic film. And
Great movie.
this was pointed out to me by someone. There's not one female in that movie. It's an all-male cast.
There's not.
Oh, it's so good.
Well, they're not fighting over anything.
That's where we lose our.
Sorry, ladies.
Our lady viewers. Matt Carr mentions a movie. Have you guys seen Dirty Little Billy?
once, yeah.
I can't find it. I've looked and looked, and I can't find it. So if
It's on
anybody knows a
YouTube.
digital, is it really? Okay.
Hmm.
Well, I looked
Yeah,
years ago, and I guess I need to check again. Um,
yeah. That's the only place I found it.
I've heard it's terrible, so maybe that's why I didn't look harder.
You know, it's not. I mean, I don't think it's terribly made.
Hmm.
It seems like they had a good budget for the time. Like it's not a bad quality film. It's just not much of a story, and it's kind of takes place. It's kind of like a prequel for Billy. It's like his time in Wichita, and you kind of see how he becomes Billy the Kid. It's not historical at all, and it's kind of boring, but it's a Billy film, so you
Hmm.
gotta watch it.
I mean, what about Gore
Uh,
Vidal's Billy the
gonna
Kid?
do it.
Terrible, in my opinion.
That's my second favorite. Damn it, James.
I think it. I mean,
You know,
go ahead, Josh.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead, sir.
Sorry.
The floor is yours.
Uh, I didn't. You're breaking up, so I'm sure you're talking shit to me. I just don't know what you said, so I'm gonna let it slide. Uh, I didn't like how they compacted the whole, Billy's entire life into an hour and a half. That obviously was rushed. I think, and forgive me because I don't remember his name, but the guy that portrayed Pat Garrett, in my opinion, that's the best Pat Garrett we've had on film. Um, I liked Val Kilmer. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I just thought it was a good Western. Again, the scenery is a little off, the topography is a little off, but I'm gonna put it number two in my book. Go ahead, James. Belittle me and make me feel about this tall now.
No, no, you're entitled to your opinion, even if it's wrong. It's. I mean,
Even
I
if it's
think Val
wrong,
Kilmer
okay.
does a Val Kilmer's a good Billy the Kid in that. I think he captured a lot of the prankster and the lightheartedness of it.
Hmm.
But I thought Stinking Springs was cool in it. I thought that was pretty neat. And the way that he came out and surrendered to Pat. But overall, I just think it's a crappy movie. I didn't enjoy it at all. Keegan, what do you think?
As a movie, it's so. I'm a huge Val Kilmer fan, though. I mean, obviously, there's Tombstone, but then Ghost in the Darkness, Doors, stuff like that. But we did rank him
The
higher than
Saint.
Emilio Estevez, and a lot of people hated us for that. But I was like, he just felt more like Billy than like Emilio. Having watched that before I really, really got into Billy, it did not make me want to go like research Billy. He just seems so like loose cannon all the time. But it's super iconic. And then the second one, I think's the better of the two. Uh, Plus the soundtrack's much better in the second one.
Yes.
It is a better soundtrack, definitely. Uh, it seems like most of the people we hang with end up quoting and liking the first one better than the second one. I tend to agree. I prefer the first one. However, I think the second one's better made and is probably a better overall story. Maybe it's just the fact that the first one doesn't screw it up with the Brushy Bill thing that
Yeah.
leads me towards that side. I don't know, but definitely a better soundtrack.
Plus, you can
Which
go
one did you
visit
see
where they filmed
first?
it.
Hmm.
Which one did you see first, Josh?
Young Guns won the first one.
What about you, Keegan? Which one did you see first?
The first one.
See, I saw the second one first, and it's my favorite. And I always wonder if maybe that's kind of one of the catalysts for it being my favorite, is
Could
because
be.
it was the one that kind of woke it up for me.
Yeah, it could be. People tend to flock to the original thing that they saw, so that could be
Yeah.
it.
What do you think about The Outlaw? Is that the Howard Hughes movie?
Mhm. The scenery's great in it. uh, and I've often wondered, God, it's been years since I've watched The Outlaw. I mean, probably it was one of the first Billy the Kid movies I watched. Actually, right after Young Guns won, I went and had to get more Billy, and that's what I saw. And isn't that not the one where Billy the Kid and Pat Garrett basically ride off in the sunset, and didn't he fake his death in that one? Um,
I
is that
know that
right?
there's a similar ending in King Vidor's Billy the Kid from like the 30s, if that's what you're thinking about. But that's where like
Yeah,
Billy the Kid rides off and Pat Garrett's like waving after him or something.
yeah.
Kind of goofy.
I've always wondered if maybe Brushy used that as inspiration as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Declan asks if there's any updates on the Barry.
Keegan.
Do you know the last name, Keegan? Billy
It,
the Kid movie.
I think I've heard it said a lot as Barry Keegan, so I've just gone with that because I was
Yeah,
like, that's pretty cool.
I haven't heard anything. I've often wondered if the Billy the Kid TV show kind of put that on the back burner since there's like concerns about oversaturation and stuff.
I
I
saw
bet
an
it did.
interview though where he said that he was really excited to be doing it, and it was recent. So I don't know if it's just in production hell. It might be. There's a lot of movies that get stuck in that route, but at least the reason he's gravitated to it, I think he would make a good Billy the Kid.
Yeah, he's got the look.
Yeah,
Keegan, what do you think about the Billy the Kid show? Have you watched any of it?
I have not watched any of it.
Gotcha. Do
I'm
you
I'm
plan to?
super bad on watching TV. Like I'll watch movies, but I'm so busy all the time. I've watched Outer Range, and that's about it for recent TV shows.
Yeah. Do you think you'll ever watch it?
Eventually, yeah. Yeah, eventually I
Yeah.
find a way to watch or read anything I can with Billy, so at some point.
Yeah.
Do
Now, let's
do
talk
we have
about
any more
high
updates
springs.
on the Young Guns 3? Is it
No.
what's that?
Yeah. I have not
Haven't
heard
heard
anything.
anything. Do you think it's happening?
Uh, you know, now when I tell you my source for this, I'm automatically disqualified, and you're just going to go ahead and boot me off the show. But before Dan Edwards and I kind of had our falling out, and we were on at least somewhat sociable terms, uh, I asked him that, and I think this was leading up to the whole Emilio Estevez interviewing for the that bullshit picture of his. And I asked him because he is implying to me that him and Emilio Estevez are on very good talking terms, which could all be bullshit. I don't know. And I
Got
asked
it.
him, I said, well, so is Young Guns 3 going to happen? And he said, well, I'm not at liberty to say. And I said, well, if it wasn't happening, you would be at liberty to say. And he laughed and he goes, well, that's the cop in you, I guess. And he winked at me. So, you know, uh, uh, so he certainly implied that it was in the works, but I mean, shit, we've heard that for what 4 years now. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we'd know about it by now, but that's the last I heard of any part of it.
Yeah.
So, and considering my source, I'm going to go ahead and say it's not true.
Yeah.
Because if it were true, that would be the first thing that he's talked about or wrote about that actually was true. So I don't see any reason that trend's going to change now.
Now, Daniel Ramirez says, since this is a paranormal show, I'll say this. I work a very famous Texas monument battle site, and ghosts are definitely real and out there. And I think a lot of folks, Keegan, since your show's called Cool's Paranormal, uh, a lot of folks might have been thinking, let's talk some paranormal stuff on the show tonight, which is cool, and I'm always down to do. Uh, what do you think in your studies and experiences? Do you think ghosts are definitely real and out here?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely caught some stuff that I can't explain, and if you want me to, I can tell a story about my dad and his papu because I just don't know how you explain that one. But
Sure.
yeah, we've had some experiences. We've gone to some old locations, Waverly Hills in Kentucky. I'm sure everyone's heard about at some point. It's an old TB hospital. Um, Probably the best place. We live in Colorado. The Stanley Hotel didn't like me. I told them there was nothing there, but I think that was a money ploy. Worst tour I've ever been on was at the Stanley. So,
Really?
hmm anytime
So
you
what's
ask
the
a question,
story?
they were like, "You can find out more in the gift shop," and I was like, "You ain't gonna tell me what's going on here?" Like,
We need to start doing
What's the?
that, James. When they
Go
ask
ahead.
us questions, let's just tell them to go to our store instead.
That's a great idea.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. This is why we don't get anything accomplished in the hours because I keep saying stupid shit that throws us off track. Sorry, go ahead.
What's your story, Keegan?
with my dad, you
Yeah.
telling that one. So my dad was 9. They lived outside of Chicago, and he was very, very close with his papu, or Greek, so papu's grandfather. And he passed away really unexpectedly around midnight one night. And so my yaya's siblings had told her, and she spent all night wondering how she was going to tell my dad because she's like, this is just going to break him. And early in the morning, she saw my dad come out of his room and he was like talking up in the air. And she's watching and he goes into my uncle's room, who's like one at the time, and she's like, oh, you better not wake up the baby. And then eventually he comes back out, he's talking up in the air. And he looks down, and in older houses how they have the air grates at the bottom. So it he looked down there, and then he turned and looked at my yaya, and he's like, did you see a papu? And so my yaya kind of played it off like she had just woken up, and she's like, no, what are you talking about? And he said that he had woken up because he heard a loud whirling noise, and Papu was there, and he was old and white, and it sparkled like diamonds. And he wasn't old anymore; like his skin was smooth, and he had come to say goodbye. And so they had talked for a little bit. And he wanted to go see Mark one last time, and so that's why they went in the room. When they came back out, they Greek families, they lived together. So at one point they had lived downstairs, and so that's why he, I guess, turned into a cloud and went through the vent and disappeared. But my dad's yaya lived to meet me, so it's not like he was super old or anything like that. And that one, I don't know. Like a lot of times, I'll write my stuff off just because I'm, I guess, too scientific. I've had some weird experiences, but that one, I'm like, I just don't know how you explain that one.
Yeah. I think that's the tough thing for me too, because I'm naturally skeptical. And I think any claims, and maybe it's the historian in us, but any claims should be held up to high standards of, documentation and falsifiability. But I kind of have a similar experience, not as positive, but my mom and her five siblings, four or five, um, with my grandparents when they were kids, they lived in a house, and my grandparents weren't the richest. And so this house came up for rent, and it was super cheap. And my grandma was like, yeah, we'll take it. And like the landlord was like, well, just to be clear, a guy murdered his four children and killed himself in the house, and we can't get anybody to stay there. My grandparents were not superstitious, and even growing up, they just recently passed, both of them. My grandfather was in his 90s, and my grandma was in her late 80s, and when they passed, and to the end, they weren't very superstitious. They never touted this stuff. They didn't talk about it a lot. But this would have been in the 60s, and they moved in, and they were like, we don't, that doesn't bother us. I mean, we don't believe in that. So they moved in, and they lived there for 9 days. And then they had to move out because, and my mom, and my mom and her sister were sleeping on a couch one night in the living room, and she said that there was a rocking chair, and it just started moving real fast out of nowhere. And my grandma told me that she was laying down, and there was one fireplace in the living room. This was a one-story house, and they would look through the door and see, it was late at night and everybody was in bed, and they would see shadows on the walls from the fireplace, and she would get up ready to yell at the kids for being awake at night and running around, and all the kids were asleep, and a bunch of stuff like that happened without stopping for 9 days. And they were like, look, we gotta we can't live here. And so that's an experience I can't explain, probably for similar reasons you can't, because we know the people involved. And both my mom and her, my aunts and uncles and my grandparents were not superstitious people. They didn't get anything from telling wild tales and from being the center of attention for this superstitious stuff, but they never brought it up. We only knew because my mom told us, and we would ask them about it. So it wasn't attention seeking. It wasn't, I mean, they lasted 9 days in the house. So it's the character of the witness, I suppose, that makes you say, like, well, as far as I'm concerned, I have to believe that I can't explain that. And so, yeah, I do think there's a paranormal element. Uh, have you thought any about involving that paranormal subject matter and bringing it to the Billy story, like checking out any locations,
Oh
like
yeah,
the
it'd be
courthouse?
so cool. Like I've thought about it. Um, at one point, there was this lady that had contacted us and said she was a psychic, which I have separate thoughts on psychics. I'm a huge fan of Houdini, so if you know anything about Houdini, you probably know where I'm going on that.
Hmm.
But I would love to do the courthouse, just because there's a lot of unknowns as far as how Billy escapes. Um, Not that his spirit would be there. I mean, I don't know why. Or the old Maxwell site would be another cool one. Um, and maybe just some of the old haunts where he'd go and visit friends. Because in my book, I know a lot of people are like, go to a cemetery, blah, blah, blah. I don't. Why would you haunt a cemetery? I'd feel so bad if like there was an afterlife and you're just stuck at a cemetery for the rest of your life. You're gonna you're gonna be where you had good memories, hopefully. So
Keegan,
And
and
it's,
you mentioned the courthouse prior to COVID. So Mike, you remember Mike, right, James? He
well,
yeah, I know,
I hope
right?
someday we'll have a chance to meet.
So Keegan, James is an asshole and he keeps forgetting about one of our board members, Mike Morrison. But he's a cop here with me in Amarillo, and he has his own paranormal group. And we had actually started on the process of getting permission for the courthouse, and I had it. I'm trying to think. I'd have to go through emails and see who it was that approved it through the state. And unfortunately, COVID came and screwed all that up. But I think that's definitely something that we could make happen at some point in time if we all can put our minds together and coordinate a time. Because the state, believe it or not, had signed off on it. Up until COVID came, so that would be really cool to do. Steve
Hey,
Cedarwall's got a really good story about ghosts and stuff in the courthouse. Anyway, sorry, James. What was that, man?
Joy commented, Amy's house would be a good place to investigate, and that's something that we know we could get into there.
Yeah,
Do a little paranormal Ellis house investigation.
yeah, that'd be
yeah,
fun.
that would be pretty
Yeah,
cool.
no doubt. And you know that the regulators and they were friends with Ike Ellis, and they spent a lot of time there,
Hmm.
both hanging out and having a good time, and also engaged in some firefights. So that would be a neat place.
That would be.
Steve Cedarwall actually has a cool story involving. Did he ever tell you the one about John Miller, Josh?
Yes, when when he got
Yeah,
something about dealing with the hill. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That one, and then
yeah. What?
the somebody behind him in the courthouse. But yeah, go ahead, man.
No, I'm not going to tell it. We'll have to have Steve on the show to tell it sometime. Really cool.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, have you, Keegan? Is there a lot of Billy the Kid related paranormal stuff that's been relayed to you, or that you've been told about enough to make a story or a show? I'm sorry.
There's not really. We get usually when people send us stuff, it's just people's videos on YouTube, and it's EVPs, and it's not very good. Like it doesn't sound real at all. Um, as far as
Yeah.
paranormal goes, I think the connection with Billy to Pat to Brazel to Brazel to the Roswell incident is interesting to me, and that's one we are working
Hmm.
on a video on. Hopefully, in 3 days when we're there, we can finish filming it. So that's what
Nice.
I'm excited about.
Cool.
I
Yeah.
thought New Mexico's two biggest like things they're known for being connected is interesting to me.
Yeah. I mean, hell, I
Oh
wrote a
yeah.
kid's book about it. Come on now.
I know I've reviewed it. It's great.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. I don't know. I was just always wondering. You get a lot of people that relay Billy stuff. I've had a couple which we don't have time to get into. Maybe we can do another show. I had a couple pretty crazy experiences in White Oaks, and then one at the Maxwell site. I've even got some photos that are pretty compelling, and I don't know what I believe, but it would make an interesting show at some point in time because I don't know. I think there's something there. I just don't know what, and I wish I could prove it.
Yeah, no, the Maxwell site was cool. We visited that last year for the first time because usually they were closed. Every time we get there, they were
Hmm.
closed. We couldn't, and I didn't feel like hopping the fence because I was like, I don't want to be breaking laws. I'll get kicked out and never be able to go back. But yeah,
Yeah.
they were open, and I was like, this is really cool. Like Lincoln's also super cool, but there's something
Hmm.
about the Maxwell location. I don't know.
It's very yeah. I went. It's very spooky. I went there on the 100 and God, I can't remember now. I was young, so 115th anniversary. Maybe it's 120th. I can't remember. And it was very eerie. Stood there right at at the time, as much as we could narrow it down within 2 or 3 minutes over that 10-minute time span, and it was a very odd odd feeling. Took a couple photos of me standing there that turned out kind of weird. Nothing I could really talk about on a show or could brag about because you could just claim I take terrible photographs, but definitely some weird stuff. Um, Maybe worth looking into more if you went there with the right equipment.
Hmm. Hey, we got a lot of
Josh,
weird stuff, so if you ever need equipment, we're more than happy to bring some.
Keegan, what do you think about that equipment? Do you think that it's legitimate in detecting like paranormal activity, like the EVPs and the other things?
So we had actually just recently helped Adams State University start a paranormal group, which was super neat to just help younger people get into that. And they were asking us kind of that same stuff. What should we get into? And I was like, well, bring DVRs because at least cameras or something, EVP, and then yourself. There's so many TV shows that have all these fancy equipment, and there's no scientific way to say they're real or not. But as far as like EVP, maybe a spirit box, we've had some luck with that. Um, but yeah, as far as all the kooky gadgets you see on TV, they cost an arm and a leg, and I would not recommend spending that because you could go make it for less. We made our first spirit box with just a handheld radio. We kind of programmed
Yeah.
it to just shuffle through the white noise. So yeah,
Well, what do you think about those phone apps? I know there are a lot of apps on the phone do that stuff now too.
I think they got to be fed with something from the internet where it knows
Yeah.
what's happened there and it can give you certain words. That's why I like the EVP because if something pops up there that's conclusive or audible, because a lot of times it's just noises. I shouldn't say conclusive. But if it's really audible and clear, then you're like, okay, that's something. Another thing people see is like orbs, which most of the time, especially in old buildings, there's a lot of dust. And
Yeah.
100% of the time, it's probably just that. 99.9, I should say.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I had some friends that went to Gettysburg and took pictures outside, and there were a lot of orbs. And I always thought it's odd because I've never taken pictures with my phone and had orbs show up anywhere. So, I mean, it is odd that someone going to like Gettysburg, where a battle took place, they take photos and all of a sudden there's a bunch of orbs where like I never see orbs on their iPhone pictures anywhere else.
Right.
And it kind of interesting, but I don't know how to classify that or what orbs are, you know.
Uh, Usually, what I tell people is orbs are just balls of electricity.
Right.
Um, it could be good for a ghost because they're supposed to manifest off of the electricity. So if you see a lot of orbs, probably a good sign. Um,
Interesting.
yeah.
Misty wants to know, Keegan, what do you think old school tape is better or digital for EVP?
I mean, yeah, go old school. We've heard a lot of people. We've been lucky enough to interview people that are pretty high up in that community, and they always say old school videotape and all that kind of stuff is better. I don't know why, but I will say it was a lot easier to catch stuff. Maybe because the equipment was worse, so maybe it was easier to have malfunctions or whatever. But old tape, I would say, or old voice recorders that you get for like school when you had to take notes and stuff, and you would record the lectures and stuff like that.
Huh. That's interesting. Have you ever heard? We have a paranormal group here in town that they have regular meetings like once a month, and sometimes if I'm free, I'll go to them. They did this trick with a flashlight. Have you heard anything that where they unscrewed it to where it's like just making a connection, and they'll ask a question and ask the spirit or whatever to turn the flashlight on if it's a yes or leave it off if it's a no. Have you seen them do that? Have you seen anybody do that kind of thing?
Yeah, we did that in a location here in Denver. It's gone now, but it was the Bonnie Brae Tavern, and we were lucky enough to be there late at night. And I think it was Alan was asking some questions, filming head on with the flashlight, and it did turn off, and then it turned back on, which was interesting. Can't
What's
explain it, but
crazy is, yeah, in the demonstration they did at the meeting, it was uncanny how appropriate the responses were, and it would never turn on just randomly as we were talking and not addressing whatever. it would only turn on and make that connection at the appropriate times. And the friends of mine that went to Gettysburg tried to repeat the experiment there with the flashlight, and it did the same thing. It it wouldn't just randomly connect, but they were trying to speak with the whatever was there, and it seemed like it was legit, and it was kind of freaky. Now that's not something that you can quantify or document like EVP, but that's a very cool thing that I really enjoyed seeing happen because it was like mind blowing that it was so appropriate to the
Right.
to the questions and stuff. Amy says at the Ellis house, no spooks here so far. She hasn't had any experiences. But I know I was talking to Joy, one of the folks here, and she said when she saw that fireplace scene, the photo that we were talking about, Billy and his chums hanging out around the fireplace, she really felt that was powerful, and it'd be cool to do something around that fireplace. Andrew Haley says, "What would you do if you spent the night next to Billy's grave and you heard, 'Hey pals, let me out'?" My first
Become a
question would
track
be like,
star.
you got to show me where to dig because I don't think you're exactly where that thing is. So help me out a little more, Billy.
Yeah, let's pinpoint a location before I haul ass.
Yeah. Hey, I'd go there. If you guys ever want to do that, I'm up.
Yeah, I'll
Well,
grab
yeah,
a shovel for sure.
oh, yeah, I don't know. We need to hit some of those sites up though, man. I think that would be cool. Like I said, I don't. It's not historical per se, but it is interesting, and
Hmm.
like James and I have said a million times, bad history is even entertaining in the fact that it brings people to the kid. So, if we need to do some ghost adventure stuff to bring people to the kid and then research and find out, the truth and where things lie, I think we should do it. That's why I've always been in favor of making Young Guns 3 and 4 and 5 and Billy the Kid versus Dracula and everything else, man.
Yes.
Let's, we catch so much flack, and James can attest to this, over not appealing to the older generation of historians and the boomers out there, and there's some of them that are great friends of mine that I love, but we catch so much flack for doing things differently, and in this paranormal stuff, I'm sure somebody will watch this that's a purist and critique it, but damn, if it gets people interested, let's do it.
Right.
Hopefully people are smart enough to read a book afterwards and realize, hey, this is the history behind this,
Yeah.
and understand and be able to deviate between the two. And if they're not, then is what it is. I can't help everybody, but I love it, man. I think we should do it.
Yeah. It'd be fantastic. I wish I lived closer because we could do this stuff every week down there. Um, this our viewer P Rudd 72. I always think that this is Paul Rudd because it's just P Rudd, and I'm like, yeah, that's Paul Rudd. But anyway, Paul Rudd says in the 70s when I was a kid, I saw a lumberjack wearing red and black flannel standing in my bedroom doorway. Scared me to death. Fast forward 25 years or so, my daughter saw it in my bedroom, and he follows up. Uh, I hadn't told her about it. So that's one of those experiences that, like, you know, you can't tell that to a skeptic and expect them to believe it. But if you experience that, that's convincing. That's certainly convincing.
Well, if we've learned anything from Jesse
Yeah,
James, you can
no,
have
I
hard
agree, bro.
evidence and people won't believe anyway. So,
That's right.
Very true.
yeah, no, one ghost story if you guys want to hear one. We're doing a month-long
Absolutely.
investigation in Monument here. It's about 20 minutes outside of where we live. And we were down in the homeowner's daughter's house where her daughter had died. And we actually were doing a spirit box session, and it was Andrew asked who's in here, and you hear Amanda. Remember Amanda, because her mom was in there as well, and that was her name. And the comments, we've gotten a lot from the family, and I think that's what makes it worth it. It's just like giving something to people. And I always feel bad when I don't find anything, which happens like 80% of the time. So when we can find something, it's good.
Did you guys
For
know
me,
the name?
sorry.
No.
You guys didn't know the name Amanda before?
Mm-mm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because there's a story of why we didn't know too much about it, as far as what had happened. So it,
Right.
it was kind of kept hush hush. Yeah.
Well, I think that can be more powerful though if you go in not knowing those details and then you produce something like that. That gives it more strength.
Yeah, no, that's what we do.
Um,
We have
Mm.
3 groups. So one group goes in to try to figure out why it's haunted or whatever. One group goes in to debunk everything. And then we have one
yes,
group that's just open minded. They have no idea what's going on, and then they go in there.
that's
That's an interesting
brilliant.
approach.
Hmm.
That's great, Keegan. We ought to partner with you guys more to make this stuff happen and to do some Billy the Kid related stuff about this. I find it very fascinating and I like that approach.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
let me
Um,
know.
this man, paranormal's so big. I mean, you're right. I think people would really be drawn to this. I think it's something we should look into to maybe doing a spin-off of somehow because there's no shortage of cool Billy sites. Um, Man, that'd
right.
be a good idea. I like that. I like that idea a lot, actually.
We're hitting about the hour and 15 mark, but before we wrap it up, Mel wants to see your t-shirt before we go.
So, fit it today is Billy the Kid, make New Mexico great again. So, that's our newest coalition shirt. And just for shits and grins, we don't usually talk politics on the show, and I'm not going to now. The shirt has nothing to do with any sort of Trump support or support for any candidate one way or the other. I just thought it was clever as hell, and it was truthfully a little bit of a dig on the state of New Mexico for shitting on Billy as much as they have. So with that in mind, don't anybody get because I've had a couple or a pretty well known historian bitch about it, saying that he didn't like the fact that we were showing Trump support, and
You know,
I'm not even that crazy about the guy. So it really had nothing to do with Trump support. I just thought it was a clever shirt. So, anyways, go go to our website and order one. It's election year, man. We're coming up. Let's throw a vote. Right, let's write in Billy. Actually, after watching the debates the other night, I think
yeah,
I'm just going to write Billy in because, yeah. Go ahead, James. Save me
yeah,
here.
yeah. No, I'm right there with you. Bonnie Beaudry, 2024.
We got one of those coming out too. We're gonna put this on a mug too, folks. So I know
Yeah.
there's coffee mug people out there. So be looking for that too. But
So
yeah, Bonnie Beaudry 24. I like it.
Keegan's got a really cool ghost story that will convince you of the existence of ghosts without a shadow of a doubt. And if you want to know what it is, go to our store and purchase a bunch of items,
Yep,
and we
it's
might
there.
tell you.
There's gonna
Keegan,
be a
thanks for
golden
coming on
ticket.
the
That's
show.
fair.
Thanks for being here, man. And if anybody watching, if you haven't checked out Culz Paranormal, go over there and subscribe and like and keep an eye on them. They do cool things. I just did a little video for you guys about favorite movies. We're gonna hash out the best movies out there. So it's a cool thing that you got going on. I'm glad to have met you and know you. And thanks for joining us and for talking about this stuff today, man.
Yeah, no, thank you for inviting me. I was really excited to come on and talk Billy and whatever we were gonna talk about. And hey, if anyone's in New Mexico this weekend, come say hi because we'll be around a lot of the Billy stuff, but in Roswell as well. And James's video goes live tomorrow, so if you want to see his favorite movies.
Cool. Yeah, I'll
Sweet.
make sure I share that and let everybody know. So that's fun.
Hey, how long are
So
y'all going to be in New Mexico, real quick? Sorry. How long you be
We
there?
leave Thursday and we'll be there through some point in Sunday.
Hmm. Maybe I'll holler at you. Let me see if I can get away. Be
Okay.
fun.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, it's only a couple hour drive for me, so I can usually make things work. But I'll let you know.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
Josh needs no excuse to take a trip.
None. I just got back from one. Trust me, my liver can feel it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
All
that's
right,
all right.
guys. Well, thanks.
Cool.
Thanks so much for listening and watching. And until next week, y'all keep an eye out on our stuff and go over and keep an eye on what Coles is doing. So have a good week and thanks for being a part of this community. Y'all take it easy.
Thanks, guys.